Good morning. I'm recording uh, part 2 of the segmentation chapter, which relates to segment selection, targeting, and positioning. And I'm basing this on uh, the textbook Marketing Principles 8th edition by Michael Solomon. I shouldn't say I'm basing this on, I should say I'm building it around because you should be able to follow it uh, without the book, and I'm not really drawing too much from the book. So I showed you this particular diagram in the previous in part one. These are the various segments in the market. Let's say, okay. Now the next question is: are these segments any good? And by that we mean we need to evaluate these segments. How good are they? And so the book mentions 5 criteria for evaluating the segments. Are they similar and different? Are they measurable? Are they large enough? Are they reachable? And are they a good match? And so let's talk about these a little bit. So let's say, are they similar and different? So let's say two of these segments are let's say the poor people and rich people. And then there are these other in the middle, poor people and rich people. Now that would be different, isn't it? Poor people, rich people. We could say young people and old people. We could say Hispanics and Caucasians. Uh, we could say males and female. That would be different, right? But suppose we said, oh, this is males and this is elderly segment and male segment, and that would be not different, right? That would be overlapping because some elderly are also male, and then some elderly are female, but some elderly happen to be male. So male and elderly is not a good basis of segmenting because they're not different. And they're not similar either. When you have all the elderly, then some are male, some are female. Are they measurable? Yes, they are. I mean, we simply count them. The census has that information, so we would actually know how many males in the society, then how many females. Or if we are saying the rich and poor, then the income levels are divided. So these are measurable, right? But let's take an example where they are not measurable. So let's say I want to divide people by racism, like not race but racism. Like some people have a racist attitude and some don't. I can't do that. I have no way of measuring racism because even if I ask them, they won't tell me. They won't tell me not just because they don't want to tell, but in their mind they are not racist. So, and there is no possible way of racism. Yeah, we recognize it when we see it, but of course we would recognize it depending or not recognize it depending on our own inclination. So racism would be one example. Let's say I say those people who have fear of salesperson. Now that will be very difficult also. I would have to define fear and how shall we measure it? I'll give you one more example. There is a concept called self-monitoring. That means, are you aware of the impression that you are making on people with whom you are interacting? And so some people are very high self monitors and some people are low self monitors. This is just an example. You don't have to know the concept of self monitoring. And if you don't follow this example for the sake of the exam, that's okay. I thought in my own ways of thinking it's a good example. So some people are high self monitors. They are aware of the impression they are making on the person they are interacting with. And some people are low self monitors, so they keep on doing whatever they're doing in the mind without, they think they're making a good impression, but actually they are a poor reader of the reaction that the person they're interacting with is having, because that reaction is silent. Now, can we measure that? No, it's very difficult. So some segmentation criteria are easy to measure, some are not easy to measure. Now, third criterion is it large enough? The segment that results, is it large enough? And I would say that depends on, again, let me give you an example. So, for example, there might be people who eat their salad after they have eaten their entree. And actually, I'm told that in France, a lot of people do that. Salad is served after the entree. But let's say in America, we wanted to segment people who eat their salad after the entree. Now, first of all, measurement would be a problem. I mean, we would actually have to ask each person, uh, right? But that would be a small segment. I think that would be a small segment, right? That's interesting. So another example is, and I saw this example occurred to me because this weekend I was observing a person finishing her cocktail. So it was a cocktail in a martini glass. So I assume it was some kind of martini, and she left the cherry in it. She finished the drink, left the cherry, put away the glass. And I was saying, oh my God. So supposing there are 1 million martinis served uh, on a in a single day across the nation. No, let's assume there are 10 million martinis are served, and 1 million of those drinkers of martini, they leave the cherry in the glass unused, uneaten, unrelished. That means there were 1 million cherries being wasted every day. So that would be an important thing to know. All right, but I just mentioned 1 million. That's 1 million spread over the entire country, 300 million. But it may not be 1 million. It may be, let's say, 100,000 or just 10,000 people. Then that would be a small segment, right? So that's what I mean by large sample size. Next, reachable. Is this particular segment reachable? So yeah, if I do male and female, then there are magazines for males and magazines for females. But what do I mean by reachable? Can my marketing mix reach them so that it doesn't reach other people? Right? I can advertise in Time magazine and it'll reach male and female. But if my target market is only male, then I will have wasted half of my money because the Time magazine is charging me for reaching so many million men and so many a million women. I don't want to pay to reach men if my target market is only women. Luckily for me, there are women's magazine and the men's magazines. If I'm selling women's clothing, I don't have to distribute it everywhere. There are women's clothing store, so I can limit my clothing just to women's store. That's what I mean by reachable. Can my marketing mix reach one particular segment without also reaching the second segment? Because for reaching the second segment, I'm spending money, and that money is wasted. Right? So if I segment my market as male, female, as rich and poor, again, there are stores that cater to rich and there are stores that cater to poor. So rich and poor, I can reach differently. Right? But let's say I segment my market into left-handed people and right-handed people. And size is not measurability is not a problem because I can measure that. I think there are substantial number of left-handed people in the country. But can I reach them differently than right-handed people? No, I cannot. Left-handed people do not read different magazines than right-handed people. Left-handed people do not watch different TV programs. Left-handed people do not attend a particular sports more than the right-handed people do. Left-handed people do not shop in stores that are different from right-handed people, where right-handed people shop. So left-handed versus right-handed will be difficult to reach. Likewise, eat your salad first or eat your salad last at lunch. Even if that segment was large enough, and even if I could measure them, I cannot reach these people separately. And then finally, good match. Now, let's take the salad first, salad last. Does it even make sense in terms of my product? I mean, would my product be different? Between my product and between the segment, is there a good match? Now, The offhand answer would be no, my product will not be different. My salad will be the same salad. My salad dressing will be the same salad dressing, and therefore that's not a good match. But let me now give you an example that in fact that might be a good match, because I could argue, or a food scientist could argue. I'm just arguing. I believe that argument is true, but I'm not sticking by it. You have to consult a scientist. But I could argue that your salad tastes different when you're hungry. That means when you're eating salad first. In order for that salad to taste equally good, just as good when you are relatively full, when your belly is relatively full, because now you're eating it after eating your entree. In order to make that salad equally tasty, I would probably have to construct that salad differently. I would have to put more of some ingredients, maybe more tomatoes, maybe more spinach, maybe more cheese. Maybe the cheese has to be of a different kind. Maybe the dressing has to be of different kind. So although this is a hypothetical example, it's entirely possible that the salad that my chef would prepare for eating as before the entree would manage to be tasty by preparing it differently. Certain ingredients will taste much better when you are hungry. So let's then take another example. Good match. If my consumers are price sensitive, and I'm this this health bar or granola bar, it's called Kind brand. I believe it's very pricey. If my customers are price sensitive, or there is a price sensitive customer segment out there, I should not cater to that. I should not select that segment as my segment. Or if I'm Nordstrom, for example, or if I'm Anthropology store, then I should not select price sensitive consumers. Right? But on the other hand, if I'm Walmart, I should not target status conscious consumers. That's very important, right? And so this is what we mean by, is there a good match between what I'm offering and if I'm, let's say, what is that, Cinnabon. If I'm Cinnabon, I should not target health conscious consumers. Or if I'm Coca-Cola or Pepsi, and if I want to target health conscious consumers, I should do that only if I can come up with a product, a beverage, a form of cola that's less calories and less sugar. But if I'm Honest Tea, then I should probably target, I would be a good match. Honest Tea, I would be a good match for health conscious consumers. So that's very important. Uh, Now the next idea is give me a few minutes. I don't know why it's stuck here. Come on. Actually, my mouse is stuck. Okay, there it is. I probably have gone one step too far. Did I do the... Okay, and let me put it in the projection mode. And so there you go. So these are the three separate situations. Situation 1, these are all market segments. Let's say we got 6 market segments. For convenience, we are showing them equal size and same color, but they actually are different sizes, different colors, so to speak, if color shows the differences. And then here I'm targeting all of these. See, I'm covering all of these. Here I'm covering each one, but with a different marketing mix. Each one of these circles, each one of these groups of circles shows a different marketing mix. Here I am selecting only one particular market. I'm ignoring other markets. I'm saying I don't want to cater to other markets because my product and my marketing mix will not appeal to them. These three situations depict these three different strategies for segmentation. One of them is differentiated multi-segment, one of them is concentrated and niche segment, one of them is undifferentiated. So take a minute and figure out which one is which one. Okay, and I probably reveal the answer to you on the next slide. So that's undifferentiated, and then you have differentiated and multi-segment, and then finally you have concentrated or niche. And so it's self-explanatory, I suppose. I hope. Now let's take an example. So this obsession is a perfume. It's been around for quite some time. It's a cologne. And then you have eternity. By the way, these are available for males and females both. So they're not segmenting by gender. So eternity came much later, whereas obsession was there before. And when the obsession came, the type of models that they showed, type of people they showed, the type of situation they showed, and I'll show you those situations in a minute. But as the obsession name itself stands, it's like you are a young person, maybe 21, maybe 25, and you're going out on the night, and you are it's your strong goal to get some action tonight. Okay, so that's the situation. And then that, I think it came in 1980s. I could be wrong, even earlier, but I do know obsession was available in 1980s. And then by mid 1990s, AIDS became very common. It became a problem, and so people were not into one night stands anymore. They were into the long term relationships, and therefore the same company, Calvin Klein, brought out a perfume or a cologne and called it Eternity. So the brand name itself positions. Now we are into the third part of the chapter called positioning. We talked about segmentation evaluation. We talked about targeting the particular segment. Now we're talking about positioning. How do you position your product so that it appeals to a particular segment? And obsession and eternity are good examples. So obsession catered to someone who was driven to attract the opposite gender, person of opposite gender, in the here and now. Eternity was then brought out because the times were changing, culture was changing. A significant proportion of people who wanted a date, they did not necessarily want one night stand, rather they were looking for a long-term relationship. So these are two different market segments. These are two different. Now, given that you want to cater to these two different market segments, how do you position your brand? You position your brand differently by the brand name itself. Brand name itself will attract people of two different mojos, so to speak. Those who are obsessed about one night stand or getting success in the short term, in the here and now, and those who are looking for a long-term success, long-term romance. Name itself, and then look at the bottle shape. This particular bottle shape, it has sexual symbolism built into it. It's all a matter of your personal interpretation. I shall not talk more about that. And the colors are strong here. Notice the colors are strong. Here the colors are more faded, more subtle, so to speak, right? Now I want to show you looks like my PowerPoint is getting stuck again. Okay, here I want to show you these images. Now I shall not tell you which images for which one, but I want to tell you that one of these images is used for the obsession. and the other image is used for the eternity. You figure out whether this image is for the eternity or this image is for obsession. Obsession, eternity, or eternity, obsession. Make up your mind. Take a second. And there you go. That's the obsession. This was another ad, by the way, in the early days. Done classfully. Done in a classy manner. So these are naked or near naked people. Very together. But it's done artistically. They are on a swing together. But it's done artistically. It's not done in a lewd manner. Whereas this eternity. So, and then this guy is eternity. See, six abs, I mean. So here you get the idea. We position our product by the product design. I would imagine, although I've used both, but I couldn't tell the difference, or I've forgotten. But I could imagine that Obsession cologne itself, the spray, the cologne itself is more intense and stronger, whereas Eternity might be milder, but I don't hold me to that. But the product name and the shape of the package itself is utilized to position. You can see my hands going quote unquote position or positioning the brand. And then the images that we convey in our communication, brand communications go a long way. By the way, the product shape, package shape itself is also a communication. So when we say communication, sometimes we mean the image and the advertisement, but everything about the product is a communication. Price itself is a communication, right? So in this case, the product shape, package shape, and the brand name is a communication. The colors schemes are a communication, and then the imagery that we present, the model that we present in the advertisement is positioning. So if you recall, positioning is nothing but in your mind all of the brands in my product category are placed somewhere, and how do you put my brand in, where do you put in my brand in relation to my competing brands? Right? So Eternity and Obsession, for example, are positioned differently in your mind. I already talked about these in the previous example. This is another way of positioning. So here I don't think that the product shape itself is more or less one type or the other, although it could be, but the product shape is not the focus here, or it's not the focus in talking about it. But here is another example of positioning by lifestyle. I'm trying to cater to people who have a different psychographic. By psychographic, I mean their lifestyle is different, but also their way of looking at the world is different. The way of looking at themselves, the self-concept is different. Their attitude towards the world in general, world at large, is different. And how do I do that? By using a different model who looks different in face and shape, but also in the action of the moment, in the clothing he or she is wearing, and what other accessories he or she is wearing. So here he or she is wearing a very classic, not very loud necklace, for example, whereas he or she is wearing more playful beads, so to speak. He or she is wearing nothing. So what they are wearing, and then the face expression goes a long way. It's sometimes difficult unless you are a writer or an artist, a story writer, to put in words as to what these face expressions are. Right? But as a consumer, you don't have to exactly be able to articulate what these face expressions are. What matters is that these expressions do communicate a certain attitude. So here, for example, she's a challenging lioness, if you will. She is inviting by her look, and yet inviting not in a subservient way, but inviting rather in a dominant way. So she could be a dominant person, so if you will. Here, this is an non-threatening enticing expression, so to speak. Whereas here again, she's like, stay away from me if you are not, if you can't take it. But on the other hand, you're welcome to be my friend. And she's a very self-confident person, so to speak. Now, these are just some of the elements in the face expression or in the overall presentation of these models. But I'm communicating to you that the brand communicator and an artist has a definite idea as to the psychographics of the person that they are appealing to. This is another example of positioning by lifestyle. So earlier I was using the same slides to say these are two different market segments. But once I capture that market segment, that group of consumers, visually, I can then use that visual to actually in my brand communication. So all I need to do is just put the product here. And then this was obviously an example of uh, market segmentation. And if I design my gym both in terms of the equipment, in terms of facility, but also in terms of the program. So for example, if I'm catering to these people who are seeking correctional fitness, then maybe I need to have a nutritionist on my staff. And then I would communicate that this is what my gym offers, and in that manner I will have position in the consumer mind what my gym is. So this person will not come to my gym, and that's just as well, because I don't want to waste my marketing resources advertising to this person, because that's not who I want to position my gym against. So that's again uh, the end of my presentation, and thank you.